Baseball isn't just numbers, numbers, numbers.
This game is not being played on computers.
You don't do that with a bunch of statistical gimmicks.
You don't put a team together with a computer.
We're talking weighted runs created plus,
expected WOBA,
his sweet spot rate,
defensive runs above average,
average exit velocity,
barrel rate,
xFIP,
BABIP,
SIERA.
We are
above replacement radio.
And welcome to Above Replacement Radio, where we're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Gianta. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I'm doing okay today. It's today is one of our favorite / least favorite pods of the year. It's the World Series recap. It's the end of the season. It's the near start of the off season. And this World Series was, from a national standpoint, if you're watching as a neutral fan, I think it definitely, maybe left a lot to be desired given the circumstances. As two Red Sox fans, we are very elated at the outcome. But yeah, what a weird 5 games, the way that everything unfolded and the way that the series was won by the 2024 Los Angeles Dodgers, the World Series champions, the first repeat champion in above replacement radio history. So congratulations to them for the coveted repeat ARR champion title. They finally get rid of the Mickey Mouse narrative, which I was never really too bought in on to begin with. But hey, they don't have to hear it anymore. It was a team that, spent the money, that went for it, and it paid off. And I think it's a good thing for baseball. People might not like it, but it sends a message out to the rest of the league that this is how you do it. They were a team that stepped up in the right moments and got it done.
Yeah, they did what they had to do, and yeah, I think pretty well earned. They had a difficult path to get there. They faced one of the more dangerous teams in the one of the more dangerous teams in MLB for the first round of the playoffs. Got through them in a tough 5-game series. Won against one of the hottest teams in baseball against the Mets to get to the World Series, and then beat the Yankees, the AL champions. So yeah, congratulations to the Dodgers. I think with how disappointing their previous 2 postseason runs were, we kind of lost sight of how good they actually are and how well constructed that roster is and historically has been. So when it kind of went down how it was supposed to go down, those past few years of playoff failures kind of skewed us in a direction to where we weren't expecting it. So now when it has happened, it's like, oh wow, they got through it.
It feels like an upset, right?
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
It's like, really not.
The how it really made me realize I kind of lost sight of how good the Dodgers are and how great that roster was, and how, especially coming into the season, I expected them to maybe make a run at, cracking out the 116 win mark. Like I thought that was a possibility because of how good the roster was. And obviously some health stuff happened. They lost some players didn't meet expectations, but still won 98 games, still had the best record in MLB, and ultimately won the series.
If you had gone to someone in like October or maybe November of 2021 and said, in 3 years, the Dodgers will have Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, Teoscar Hernandez, Tyler Glasnow, Jack Flaherty. They'll bring in the highest paid pitcher as a Japanese import, and they will win the World Series. Everyone would be like, well, yeah, of course they did. What was their run differential? How many games did they lose? They obviously swept because no one's beating that team. And that's not really what it feels like, especially going into this postseason. Everyone knew that the talent, right? We knew it was there in previous years, but obviously, I think, recency bias has it where, they've just disappointed to such high levels in the 2 previous postseasons that just, it feels like, something that we don't want to be fooled by again. But, they actually did the right thing this time.
Yeah, with this, I'm trying to go to our history of or how many people took the Padres over the Dodgers? Like I'm trying to look at like
I
prediction
did. I
stuff.
mean, both of us did. I believe I saw on ESPN or something like that. It was like 22 people picked the Padres and like five picked the Dodgers. It might not have been ESPN, but I remember seeing something similar to that.
Yeah, I'm looking. It looks like in 2020, I think in the or excuse me on MLB.com, the three experts all picked the Padres. So
Hmm.
like it was, not that it was consensus that the Padres were going to win, but a lot of people were thinking the Padres were going to win. I did not think the Dodgers were going to win a game in that series. Obviously they uh they won the series, so that was very wrong. But yeah, it is interesting how, six playoff losses in a row can really, divert us from what we should actually be expecting, which is, the Dodgers to obviously succeed.
Padres fans got to feel so upset about the way that that went down because like
Oh
they
yeah.
had the Dodgers on the ropes, and man, that all of that could have been theirs, right?
Oh
If
yeah,
they
for
just,
sure. For sure.
because yeah, I mean that's tough.
Yeah,
Um,
Foolish Bailey tweeted that out, and that put that into perspective for me. I was thinking because it would have been the exact same situation for the NLCS. They would have started hosting. Only thing that would have been different is the World Series would have started in New York, and I'm not sure how different the results would be. I think the Padres,
it would
were in a
definitely
better
be more
situation than the
competitive.
Yankees.
Yeah. Well, that depends because I mean, I think, we'll get into the games, but I mean, if we're looking at the overarching view of this series, right? I mean, the Dodgers obviously they did what they needed to do. They did enough. Uh, this series was the Yankees beating themselves more than anything. I think that's the consensus, but also just the correct take if you watch the games and if you look at the stat sheet.
Yeah, for sure. And just, I mean, the fifth inning of game five is the best example of that for sure. It's written out completely for you. But yeah, a lot of other intricacies, whether it be decision making or play on the field, that just yeah, just did not do well. But yeah, did we kind of want to go into kind of a game by game breakdown of
Yeah,
of
yeah.
of
Let's start up with game three. This is probably the most like forgettable of the three games that were just
yeah.
played, right? I mean, it was very similar. I mean, it was the exact same score as game two. It was a 4-2 Dodgers win. Freddie Freeman homered in the first inning, a two-run shot to left or to right field. I wouldn't say it was a short porch homer because it was gone in 20 out of 30 ballparks. And then the Dodgers tacked on a couple more runs with that Mookie Betts. It was a another RBI. I want to say it was like Edmund or something.
Um, yeah, I feel like there was like some sack flies in that game that
Yeah.
happened. Yeah, but yeah, it was yeah, Dodgers got up early. They never gave up their lead. It was, Dodgers were kind of comfortably in a lead for most of the game. Um, so yeah, it was pretty yeah, it was, as you said, fairly forgettable. It never really felt uber competitive, even though the score might have reflected that in some way. But yeah, Walker Bueller. We didn't know what version of Walker Bueller we were going to get because of how different it had been in the Padres series as opposed to the Mets series. But Bueller goes out, has another very good performance. 5 innings, 2 hits, no runs, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. Along with a 31% whiff rate and 33% called strike and whiff rate. Um, and then Clark Schmidt on the other side did not have a great performance, and um, arguably, he should have allowed more runs based on
Yeah.
what happened. He went 2 and 2/3 innings pitched, 2 hits, 3 runs. He walked four, and that's again in 2 and 2/3 innings pitched. Walked four and struck out three. And I mentioned, the 3 runs that he allowed. Two of those runs originated from walks in that, he walked somebody and they eventually scored. And then the other run that he allowed was on the Freddie Freeman home run. And that was a 2-run homer. So he walked, I believe it was Mookie Betts, for so
Mhm.
that Freeman was able to drive him in on the home run. So yeah, Clark Schmidt did not have a very good performance. A stat that you put down, was that 66.7% of his was it his cutters or
Cutters.
slider
It was his
cutters.
cutters, which by the way he threw the most of out of any pitch.
Yeah, so his primary pitch, he threw outside the zone
31.
66.7% of the time, which was the third highest for any game of his career minimum, three cutters thrown. Um, so yeah, he was not, not in the zone. And obviously, you want to pitch around some of these Dodgers guys, but that's the result that happens, 3 runs could have been a lot more. But yeah, very unfortunate that the Yankees weren't able to really get much of a start out of him. They had to use the bullpen. Bullpen did well, 6 1/3, 3 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, and induced a lot of soft contact with an 82.8 mph average exit velocity. So Yankees kind of kept them in the game and made that ninth inning a little bit more on the exciting side. Also, Yankees ran into some slight bad luck. They were 0 for 3 on 100+ mile/hour line drives. Those 3 line drives had an average expected batting average of 497 and an average slugging of 963. So essentially, they were expected to get 1 base per line drive on those 3 line drives, and they got 0 bases on it. And one of those line drives was with runners in scoring position. So if that was hit just to, a few feet a different direction, that could have resulted in a run earlier on for the Yankees, but unfortunately for them, it didn't happen. But yes, not a whole lot, to talk about with that game, but ultimately it put the Dodgers on top 3-0.
If now that the series is all over and we can, say everything in hindsight, I think it's pretty safe to say that Walker Buehler turned out to be the biggest X factor for the Dodgers throughout this postseason. We obviously did struggle in that game one against or not that game one, that game three against the Padres, but I mean, he locked it down against the Mets. Of course, he shut out the Yankees in 5 innings, and obviously last night closing out the series. But this is a guy that really no one believed in for a good majority of the season. I mean, this was, the Dodgers pitching rotation was obviously it's been what's hurt them in previous playoff runs in the last couple of years, like we've both mentioned. And Walker Buehler was not, helping out that cause by any means. I'm waiting for the stats to load, but I mean, he made 8 starts from mid-August through the end of the season after coming off the injured list, and pitched to a 4.93 ERA, a 5.04 FIP. His strikeouts were down, his walks were up, his home runs were up. Like he was a legitimate concern, and not a good look for what the Dodgers had going in their 3 slot with, Glass now on the IL and Stone going down and Gonsolin not coming back, Glass now going down. Like it was. I think that was kind of the big reason why people picked the Padres was that rotation depth specifically, right? I mean, Padres had an advantage in the bullpen, but not an insurmountable one. The lineups were relatively even given the star power in both, but the starting rotation for the Dodgers was such a huge question mark, and one that I think people saw as just too big to deny. But Walker Buehler and the way that he stepped up is pretty remarkable, and I'm very interested to see if any teams are swayed by those those 2 starts and that 1 relief appearance to end the season going into this winter when they consider a new contract for him.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point you bring up, because yeah, it's very surprising what he was able to do in his final 2 starts of the postseason. Because looking at his stats from this year, 5.38 ERA, 4.68 expected ERA. He was not he's not getting strikeouts at the rate we were used to seeing from him. He only had a 19% strikeout rate in the regular season. Then he faces the Padres, goes 5 innings, does not strike out anybody. So those concerns are maintained heading into the Mets series. Then all of a sudden, it's 1-1. They're in Queens. He gets some very big outs and goes 4 shutout innings ultimately with 6 strikeouts. Dodgers win that game, and then has a very, very similar performance in game 3 when they needed more, when the offense is not it wasn't as dominant as they were against the Mets. So yeah, this was one of, because we expected good performances from guys like Flaherty and guys like Yamamoto, but from getting that from Bueller was definitely a big surprise, and something that the Dodgers really benefited from, because also, if another guy was healthy, I don't think Bueller gets any starts. I think they put someone else at game 3, and then they still do the bullpen game for game 4. Like, heading into the postseason, in a normal situation, Bueller probably doesn't get starts, but just based on the health of that staff, it was a situation the Dodgers had to be in. So yeah, but yeah, he responded well. He responded well in his final 3 appearances. 10 innings, 13 strikeouts, no, yeah, no runs allowed in those final 10 innings. Like, that is that's definitely something. That's definitely something that he's going to be able to live down very well.
I feel like if a guy like Tyler Glasnow was healthy, to your point, the way that the Dodgers would have handled it was start Bueller game 4, but be ready to go to the bullpen as soon as possible.
Yeah, like a
Given the way
hybrid.
that he had pitched down the stretch after coming back from his injury.
Yeah, like maybe a hybrid, like Bueller slash bullpen game. Like, I guess it's
Hmm.
like technically it's not a bullpen game, but this guy's not
It's like
going
a
more
Bueller
than,
Nat game.
yeah, like he's not going more than once through the order here. Um,
But he was
like
huge.
yeah, it probably would have been a situation like that. But yeah, no, he got some really big innings, and made some really big outs all throughout the NLCS and World Series. So
I feel
shout out
like
to shout out to
in
him.
in this Dodgers playoff run, there are 3 players that I feel like I will remember as time goes on, and they are Freddie Freeman, Tommy Edman, and Walker Bueller.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, yeah, Shohei got injured in the middle of
After
this
game 2, or in game
series,
2 rather. Yeah.
and his performance faltered a little bit, which, it's hard to blame the guy. He was, if it were, in the regular season, he probably would have had those games off. Um, so, I don't know. He was not at 100% in those final 3 games. I know that.
No, no, he was
Um,
not.
but yeah, really cool to see Freddie Freeman get his recognition. I think we can get into it more after we go through the games here. Anything more about game 3?
No, I mean it's no, it's yeah, game 3. That's we stretched it pretty long, given just the littleness that happened in that game. Now that we're in retrospect.
Speaking of long, this was a note I wanted to find, because
Hmm.
when things feel boring, I want to find like something numeric,
To prove it.
something quantitative to to match, uh to justify my boredom. But it went 3 hours and 25 minutes for a 4-2 game, and that would have been normal pre 2023, but we are in the pitch clock era. Shout out Manfred for making that decision, about 5 years late. But it was the longest 9-inning playoff game in the pitch clock era, with less than 9 total runs scored. And there were 6 total runs scored. So just in terms of the action to time ratio, it was pretty low, pretty low.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's something I just wanted to find. And
If Chris was ever put in a saw trap, it would be he has to watch the entirety of game 3 of the 2019 World Series with commercials, and if he yawns once, he dies.
yeah, that was one of, we were a month, basically a month into knowing each other, and I was
Yep.
just tortured on that couch at Massasoit Hall. It's like, what? It's like, why does it feel like nothing's been happening the entire game? Uh,
It was a 4-1 game that went like almost 4 hours.
I think it went over 4 hours. I think it was 4 hours
Yeah.
and 3 minutes.
And it was like
Um,
a Friday night too.
yeah, Friday night. So like, yeah, there's 18-year-olds walking by us hammered, like, what's going on? It's like, absolutely nothing, man.
Literally not a single thing is happening.
You were out for 2.5 hours. I don't think you missed a single thing. But game 4, action filled, great game for the Yankees. It was really the only highlight of the series for them. But they absolutely dominated this game, especially on an offensive front. Obviously, they scored 11 runs, but to dive a little bit deeper under the surface as to why, and also looking at it further, they probably should have scored more than 11 runs, and got a little bit unlucky. They did have a, like, this is crazy. They had a 222 BABIP this game, which is crazy to think about because they still managed to score 11 runs. But the Yankees throughout the game had a 10% strikeout rate, 15% whiff rate, 15% walk rate, a 97.5 mile per hour average exit velocity, a 27% barrel rate, 43% sweet spot rate, and 60% hard hit rate. And if you're unaware, all those numbers are extremely good. And for context, the Yankees in Game 4 had the most barrels, the highest barrel rate, and that's per batted ball event and per plate appearance, and the highest average exit velocity in a single World Series game in the StatCast era. And there's 118 of such games. So they, in terms of under the surface quality of contact, they had the best in any World Series game that we've had in the last decade. So props to them in Game 4 getting it done. The tides were obviously turned in the third inning when Anthony Volpe hit a grand slam.
Go ahead, grand slam.
Yeah, go ahead
2-1
grand
at the
slam.
time.
Yeah, they were down 2-1. I believe there were two outs also. So it was very, very pivotal. And it was the most win probability added on a World Series play for the Yankees since 2003. So not only outdoes everything that they did in this series, but also everything they did in 2009, which is a series they won. So that's even more impressive. And then also Anthony Volpe was the first player in World Series history with 4+ runs batted in and 2+ stolen bases in a game. And also should be noted, Anthony Volpe and Austin Wells were leading the charge offensively, and that was out of the 7 and 8 slots in the order. Combined, they went 4 for 6 with 2 home runs, 2 doubles, 2 walks, 5 runs scored, and 5 RBI. So yeah, I mean, that's probably a large reason why they were able to succeed, because not only were the guys who were supposed to be doing well were doing well, but the guys in the 7 and 8 spots were doing well too. So yeah, I mean, it was just it was a hit parade for the Yankees. And maybe after we get to one more stat, we could discuss a little bit more why the Yankees were able to have a lot of offensive success, because that was partially determined by the team they were facing.
I was gonna say I wanted to let you get through all your notes, but the degree of variance that could have existed throughout this game is so funny, because we talk about how it was 11-4 Yankees win, and Chris, you said they could have scored more than 11 runs, and you're absolutely right about that. The Dodgers also could have just won this game entirely. The 4 pitchers that appeared in this game were Ben Kasparius, Daniel Hudson, Landon Knack, and Brent Honeywell. I would imagine most baseball fans, like true baseball fans that aren't Dodgers fans, before the season had probably heard of one, maybe 2 of those guys heading into this year.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Like, most people know Daniel Hudson, who is now retired, by the way. Shout out to him for a very nice little career. I think people that know the Brent Honeywell story know the Brent Honeywell story. Arias and Landon Knack were definitely a little more unknown before this year. The Dodgers did not treat this like a potential World Series clincher from a pitching decisions standpoint. Kasparius for 2 was an interesting choice, and he did what he, I guess, needed to do. I mean, he walked 3 in 2 innings, but he did only allow 1 run. So I guess that was pretty good. But I mean, the real trouble obviously came in the third. Anyone watching the game, and the stat sheet again proves it as well, but Daniel Hudson just did not have it in this game, right? I mean, he pitches the 1 inning. He gets he does get Juan Soto to strike out, but then he hits Aaron Judge with a pitch. He gives up a line drive single to Jazz Chisholm, and then he walks Giancarlo Stanton. So, 3 straight plate appearances against the middle of the order that just, nothing really looked right for him. He did get Anthony Rizzo to pop up, but in a bases loaded 2-out situation, up by 1, even if it's early, it's a bullpen game. So you have the freedom to kind of do whatever you want as a manager. It's not like you're kind of pressured to keep a guy out there because it's early in the game. You could have just taken him out no matter what. Well, he decides to leave Daniel Hudson in, and that's where the Volpe grand slam happens. And the Dodgers only score one run between then and the eighth inning, and then in the ninth, that's when Brent Honeywell comes in and has to serve a very how would you call it, a very noble but difficult role of just getting them to the end of the game, even if they're getting knocked around, no matter what. He gave up 5 runs and also 5 hard hit balls in 1 inning.
Yeah, that was big inning for the Yankees for sure. And yeah, it's a situation where if the Yankees don't have a disastrous fifth inning in Game 5, we are slamming, absolutely slamming Dave Roberts right now. And
I
much of
wasn't letting him get away with this, even with the results.
oh
Like this
yeah,
was the Dodgers punted this game, and it was very confusing because you could have used your high leverage relievers and not had to worry about tomorrow. And that's obviously speaking hypothetical. They still very easily could have lost this game, no matter what route they went with pitching, because the team scored 4 runs. The Yankees could have gotten, especially with how all the pitchers looked in Game 5 for the most part. The Yankees easily could have gotten more than that, but they didn't even give their high leverage pitchers a chance in this game.
yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, and just kind of weird that that happened when it's the World Series. Like, days of rest is not really something you're worried about because you have,
With relievers.
yeah, with relievers especially, you have, you know 5 months to recover after this. So yeah, it was certainly odd. Especially because, yeah, like if you set people up in the right situation, there literally is no tomorrow. And I don't think there was. I'm trying to think, was there anyone in Game 3 that really pitched in excess out of the bullpen?
For the Yankees, I mean, Landon Knack pitched 4 for the Dodgers.
But in Game 3, like,
Oh,
was
in
there
Game
anybody
3.
who really needed the
Uh,
rest?
I mean, I guess a lot of the guys have thrown just in the first 3 games in general. Uh,
I
I mean,
guess. I mean,
nobody threw more than 24 pitches the night before
um,
out of the bullpen.
yeah, right. And Daniel Hudson was through 22, and he was out there for
Yeah,
6 batters.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, he did.
so yeah, no, yeah, it's certainly a bit of a head scratcher, and it's definitely proof that winning will save your legacy, no, like, no matter what. But yeah, it's obviously a situation. If the Yankees don't blow the game yesterday, I think that's much of the narrative going on right now. A lot of the conversations today would be talking about what happened in Game 4, and what Dave Roberts could have done to prevent the Yankees from scoring 11 runs. So yeah,
That
yeah,
would be
it
that
was,
would be
it
the
was
that would be the national narrative right now is like, did Dave Roberts punt this game to go on to Game 5 and then lose? And
yeah,
that would be the conversation that everyone's having right now. Instead, we're having a very different one, but we'll get to Game 5 later. But yeah, I couldn't let the Dodgers get away with this one. I needed to address the fact that the Dodgers managed this game like it was a getaway game in May, when they were coming off of like a stretch of like 14 straight days with a game.
yeah, and it's
It was like an if we lose, we lose type of game. That's really what it felt like. But if we win, hey, that's pretty cool. The offense did a lot.
yeah, I think it's funny we had the like that joke last episode where we were talking about, like, oh yeah, why don't the why don't managers in the playoffs just do what the World Series winning manager did, and just do that? And it's like, and then it's a thought of, like, yeah, plenty of World Series winning managers have made many mistakes along the way.
Yeah.
Shout out Brandon Workman getting his ABs in 2013.
Yeah.
Um, there's been some lousy decisions made by winning managers. Um, so yeah, and that was proven in Game 4. Anything more before we wanted to talk about Game 5?
Did we talk about the Yankees bullpen in this game?
No, not yet.
Okay, the Yankees bullpen had another very nice game, which they honestly they had a very good series as a whole, outside of The ERA is inflated by game one, obviously, but in
Mhm.
this game, 5 innings pitched, 1 hit, no runs, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, 84.8 mile per hour average exit velocity, and a 139 expected WOBA.
Yeah,
The
yeah, and
Dodgers like really had nothing in these, which we talk about like, oh, the Dodgers could have won this game. The Yankees bullpen did better in 5 innings than the Dodgers probably could have in any scenario in this game. But it's still worth acknowledging the fact that they didn't even give the Dodgers, high leverage relievers a chance to match that performance.
yeah, you can't bank on your offense getting shut down in that manner. Especially with especially with the way the Dodgers offense had been going before that. Um, but uh, but yeah, and then we get to game five where it all ended. And for a while, it didn't look like it was going to end there, but it did. But I guess we can start by talking about um how the Yankees started. You had Judge with his big moment in the World Series, 2-run homer to start things off. Jazz Chisholm follows it up with a solo shot, and it seemed like it was all Yankees.
Yeah, I mean, this was. I really like the Dodgers for the first 3 innings of the game. Didn't have a single batted ball that was hard hit, and they had one that was in the sweet spot, and it was a 29-degree opposite field fly ball from Shohei Ohtani that was hit 88 miles an hour, which had an 050 expected batting average. I want to go back and check the expected batting average discrepancies between the two teams because it was quite wild in the first 3 innings of that game. Yeah, it looked as lopsided as you could possibly imagine, and 5-0 even seemed generous.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Like Flaherty just clearly did not have it. There seemed to be a decent difference in how he was
Um,
pitching at home
I
versus on
mentioned
the
this.
road.
I mentioned this on Twitter, but Jack Flaherty got less outs than Ben Kasparius the night before.
Right, right.
The
So,
bullpen game starter got more outs than the regularly scheduled starter.
right. So there was that, and then Garrett Cole was looking really, really good. Um, and obviously, as you mentioned, inducing a very weak quality of contact from the Dodgers. I think was striking guys out as
Yeah.
well.
So just to give you the exact numbers, through the first 3 innings of the game, the Yankees had a 390 expected batting average and a 996 expected slugging. The Dodgers had an 036 expected batting average and an 047 expected slugging. It was strikeouts, it was weak pop outs, it was soft ground balls. Like the Dodgers had nothing in those first 3 innings. It was a complete and total bloodbath in those first 3 innings.
Yeah, and this probably isn't great radio, but I'll talk about the outs that the Dodgers had in those first 3 innings. 45-degree fly out, negative 19-degree ground out, 41-degree fly out. I mean, all non-competitive. Then in the second inning, strikeout, pop out, then a walk, but then that fly out that you mentioned that had an 050 expected batting average, and then third inning was another walk. Then
No, you're looking
oh,
at the fourth.
I was
You're
looking
looking
at
at
the
the
fourth.
fourth.
Third
This,
was
you
strikeout.
didn't go through the second inning.
Oh wait, oh goodness gracious. Okay,
Yeah, I
we'll,
was
we'll
like,
just
that's
cut
not what I'm
that.
seeing for the third inning. It was
Yeah.
strikeout, 45-degree fly out with an
Okay.
010 expected batting
I'll
average.
just I'll just read I'll just redo that. That's bad. I advanced too hard. So yeah, looking at the data here. First inning, it's 45-degree fly out, negative 19-degree ground out, 41-degree fly out, all very non-competitive um forms of contact. Then the second inning, strikeout, 45-degree fly out. And then the third inning is strikeout, pop out, walk, and then that fly out that you mentioned that had an 050 expected batting average. So
Mhm.
so yeah, like it was either a strikeout or a a combination of exit velocity and launch angle that just never gets hits. It's
Mhm.
just always going to land in a glove um or just generally being out, if it is on the ground. So so yeah, So yeah, I mean, Garrett Cole obviously was showing great signs early on, and Jack Flaherty wasn't, and the first couple Dodgers relievers out of the pen weren't really showing great signs either. But eventually, the tides turn.
Yeah, the fifth inning, and I mean, what a like one of the innings of all time. One that I've, like there's an old saying Tim Kurkjian loves to say where you can watch this game your entire life and still see things that you've never seen before. And sometimes you got to dig a little deep to find those things like we do. But sometimes it's just right in front of you. I mean, that inning by the Yankees, just what in the world? It starts with the Kike Hernandez single, just a regular line drive single to left field. Tommy Edman lines out to Aaron Judge, but Aaron Judge drops it. I mean, it was a blatant, it was on a line. It was a 610 expected batting average, but obviously that doesn't take into account where the ball is hit. In this case, it happened to be hit right to a fielder. I mean, I would imagine, given the timing and the distance, this was probably a 99% catch probability, but number 99 couldn't do it. And then Will Smith hits into another error, a fielder's choice error, the Anthony Volpe play going to third. I don't know. Do you blame Volpe for going to third on that play? Because I really don't. I think that's probably the best play he had. He just didn't execute correctly.
Yeah, probably not. It's just, yeah, I think it was less about the decision and more the execution.
Because
Like
people
I'm
were
sure.
talking about the decision, but I mean, his momentum was taking him to third. It was the lead runner. It was a forced play. He had him. Like a good throw gets Kike out there, but a good throw wasn't made. And Jazz Chisholm, obviously not a very experienced third baseman, wasn't able to pick the throw from Volpe, thus putting two unearned runners on with out and loading the bases. And Garrett Cole, I mean, he buckles down. He gets Gavin Lux to strike out ball high. He gets Shohei Ohtani on a low and away breaking ball. And then Mookie Betts. I'll let you take this one, Chris.
Yeah, it's a grounder to first base, and it's a slow roller. Um,
49.8 miles an hour.
yes, very, very slow.
Under the speed limit on pretty much any highway.
Yes, indeed, indeed. And yeah, it's Anthony Rizzo gets it, but far enough away from the bag to where he needs to, he needs some assistance. He needs someone to throw it to. And there's no one to throw it to. Garrett Cole is kind of far down the first base line in the opposite direction. And Mookie Betts just clears it out, beats it out, and gets the what's called a single, but we kind of know it's kind of a mental error on the Yankees. But it goes in the books as a single. I believe Mike Petriello tweeted something about Mookie Betts' sprint speed on that one. Because it was a good hustle play on Mookie Betts' end. I think he said, and I'm probably miswording him, but it was like the sixth highest sprint speed that Mookie Betts has had on a run to first this year or something like that. And obviously that's a play that happens a lot. So there's probably a lot of ones that he's competing with there. But yeah, it was a good hustle play on Mookie Betts' end. And he beats out the Rizzo's attempt to get to first base after realizing that Garrett Cole's not there, and ultimately scores a run for the Dodgers and brings up Freddie Freeman. And Freddie Freeman hits a line drive with a 980 expected batting average up the middle. Pretty much a hit every time. Drives in two, and makes it a 5-3 ball game. And then all of a sudden, Teoscar Hernandez takes a breaking ball and hits it. Hits it 404 feet, but it stays in the
Yeah,
park for a double. It's a barrel, but yeah, it stays in the park. But
that ball was crushed.
yeah, it's out in 10 out of 30 ballparks as well.
10 out of 30.
And ultimately, it's a double for Teoscar Hernandez. It drives in two, and it's a tie game. And ultimate and with those three plate appearances, the Yankees went from a 93% win probability to a 52% win probability in the and that's hard to do in the fifth inning. So
Very, very rarely do you see just an entire game get flipped like that in the course of three batters. and especially when it's so preventable. Right now, not only
Yeah.
the two errors leading up to it, but Cole not covering first base was such an obvious blunder. He started the run to first, but then kind of stopped when he thought excuse me, Rizzo was gonna handle it himself. The ball had a weird spin to it, which kind of uh, made him a little more patient with it, under the assumption that his pitcher was going to be covering. Um, it's interesting because it's like this is where people love to have the conversation of like, you know, uh, unearned runs that come from errors on a pitcher should be earned. Which in this case, like the runs would have been unearned no matter what because there were two other errors that would have gotten Cole out of the inning before this. Um, but I mean, yeah, like you look at Garrett Cole's line, it's like, yeah, an 0.71 ERA in 12 innings pitched throughout the World Series, but he in large part was responsible for those 5 runs, for something that won't go down as an error because of the way that errors are measured. But I mean, if you watch the game, you know that that's exactly something that is entirely preventable, something that you're taught at a very early age of baseball is, cover the base as a pitcher on any ground ball to the right side.
Yeah, I think there was another theory, or maybe just not even a theory, just a fact that because of that spin, Cole thought that the ball was going, further toward the first base line so that Rizzo would have um a more direct path to first base and would be able to take it. But ultimately, yeah, it's you got to get over, and especially when it's the World Series and the stakes are the ultimately the highest. Those are the types of plays that you gotta be safe on better safe than sorry. Going back to the Mookie Betts side of things, the Mike Petriello tweet I'm referencing says on Mookie's hustle to first when Cole/Rizzo couldn't manage to cover, his 28.8 feet per second was his tied for sixth highest fastest all season, regular and postseason. His 4.54 home to first base was his 13th fastest. We talk about his speed declining, and it has, but he went all out there, and every bit of it mattered. And yeah, that's so yeah, he was certainly going for it on that play. So that can definitely be commended as well. But ultimately, um, the most important aspect of it was Garrett Cole not covering. But yeah, anything more before we get on to the rest of the game?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, Chris, the win probability added after this was 52%, so it's obviously very 50-50. Like, given the way that things have gone this postseason, like, did it feel over to you?
It
Like, because
like
to me it did.
it
I'm not
felt
gonna lie.
it felt like the path for the Yankees to win this game was much harder than, what a stat sheet can represent. Like, obviously with it being a tie game and the Yankees having 2 outs in that inning um and having more ups, having more offensive opportunities than the Dodgers, because they would have, through the ninth inning they would have had 5 opportunities as opposed to the Dodgers 4. Even with that, it didn't feel like they had a 52% chance to win that game.
Like, statistically, it makes sense. It's a tie
Yeah,
game in the fifth, in the middle of the fifth, no less. So yeah, of course, like that makes sense. But that just doesn't feel like a game that the Yankees recover from, or a game that the Dodgers let their opponent get away with losing.
yeah,
It goes on both sides there. But I mean, yeah, I mean, just what a even when the Dodgers took the lead in the sixth inning, I felt okay. Well, it's 1 run. The Dodgers will come back from that. They have 9 outs. They can do it. They already came back down 5. Why can't they come back with 1?
right. And yeah, like even within the Yankees getting that run, it still felt like there were some missed opportunities there. I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
start with 2 leadoff walks, um, and they get a run out of it, but it was only 1 run. With the caliber of hitters they had up there, they probably could have gotten more. I mean, it was Soto Judge to lead off with walks, then Jazz Chisholm grounds out and makes it first and third. Stanton comes up, he gets a sac fly, which is productive. But there more could have happened there. Rizzo walks and Volpe grounds out, and that leaves 2 men on base. So yeah, even when they did, take the lead, it felt like there was, more left to be desired.
Yeah, I mean, Stanton did his part. I mean, credit to Stanton for uh, it honestly, like, it felt like outside of the eighth inning of time Stanton came up with a chance to do something this entire postseason, he did it.
Yeah,
Like I mentioned earlier this season, or like a couple podcasts ago, rather, how one of my narratives that I was wrong on was that his time was very limited as like a regular player. And he's, I think this postseason has really proven. I mean, he already proved me wrong in the regular season, but this postseason reminded me that he's still a middle of the order bat. When healthy, it just happens to be not very often, but it is in October.
yeah, yeah, indeed, indeed. And then yeah, moving on to um the top of
Eventually,
the
the eighth
eighth.
inning.
Yeah,
The full context of this inning really is that the decision to go to Tommy Kahnle,
true,
which
true.
I know Clay Holmes had come in to uh, walk Teoscar Hernandez on 4 pitches but then get a looking strikeout of Max Muncy on 3-2. Um, he was at like 11 pitches. I thought they were going to bring it back out for the eighth, and then bring in Weaver whenever Holmes got into any slight bit of trouble, but they didn't end up doing that, and uh, Kahnle ended up more or less laying an egg. He gave up another line drive single to Kike, a very unlucky ground ball to Tommy Edman, which probably could have been a double play if it was hit 10 feet to its left or right. But it's in the hole and a single, and then he walks Will Smith on 4 pitches.
Yeah, yeah, and that leads to some runs for the Dodgers. Bases loaded, no outs. That's probably going to happen.
Mm.
Gavin Lux gets a sacrifice fly. Shohei Ohtani with the clutch catcher interference to load the bases back up, and Mookie Betts ultimately gets another sacrifice fly to put the Dodgers on top. But yeah, no more runs out of that. But you know, Trinan shuts it down to finish his two and a third innings pitched and 42 pitch outing. So that was
Yeah, what
definitely
a
a cool part
job
of
that
it.
was.
Yeah,
Real quick, going back to Kahnle, because I did want to mention this. John Smoltz talked about this on the broadcast, and I do agree with him on it. I disagree with John Smoltz with on the broadcast, so I figured I'd bring this to light since I think he had the absolute correct assessment of this. Kahnle can't just keep leaning on the changeup the way that he had. Like 58 straight changeups before he finally threw a fastball. He threw all changeups in this outing. Uh, like you gotta mix in anything else at some point. Because it's like, people talk about Lance McCullers when he threw all those curveballs in game 7 of the ALCS 7 years ago. That was 27 straight curveballs. Tommy Kahnle threw 58 straight changeups. Like
right.
that's an overwhelmingly larger number. And something that got talked about a lot in this postseason in particular is it's not just the third time facing a starter in the game, but it's the third time facing a reliever in a series. And when you know a pitch is coming, it gives you some time within an at bat to figure it out, to time yourself up, to try to guess the location and know exactly how you're supposed to swing at it. But when you add that on to, across multiple at bats in a series, you're going to figure it out when you have a good enough team like the Dodgers. And, I think that's kind of why Kahnle did what he did. I mean, the walk to Will Smith, none of what I just said can really change that. But I mean, Edman found a way to put it in the right place. Kike Hernandez drilled one off him. I don't know. I think you do have to mix in a second pitch in that situation.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Especially, changeups, they don't really move horizontally for the most part. So I don't know, it's just a little bit more predictable about what'll happen
Mm-hmm.
when when a changeup is thrown. But
How
yeah,
many how
yeah.
many times in this series did John Smoltz say like Soto's got to swing first pitch here or Soto's got to swing 3 out here? I counted at least 4 times, and it's like, dude, how about we not critique Juan Soto?
Yeah, he was like
Like
the
I like whatever he is doing, it's working for him. I don't think he needs to change it in a certain way.
he got on base 52% of the time this series. And
postseason.
if he had the same exact OPS and the same exact on base percentage, but he did it by, getting singles on the first pitch as opposed to getting walks, John Smoltz would be all over him. But
Yeah.
because he got the offensive production through walks, it was apparently the wrong thing to do.
I counted 4 times where it was like some situation where Smoltz is like, Soto's got to shock everyone on the ballpark here and swing at this first pitch or this 3-0 pitch or this hitter's count pitch where you'd normally take. It's like, hey, man, how about like this guy's going to get a 600 something $1 million contract? Why don't we let him do whatever he's going to do?
Yeah.
Like, I think he knows what he's doing here.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There's maybe two people in the world who are better at what he does than him. And even then it's still kind of questionable. So
Yeah.
we can hush down. Yeah, it's it's pretty
Um,
wild.
shout out to Blake Trinan for this outing. 7 outs. People were literally saying like, I don't understand why, and it's because the Dodgers literally had nobody else. The only 6 pitchers that were still left in the Dodgers bullpen by the time Trinan came in were Walker Buehler, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who was the projected Game 6 starter, and the 4 pitchers that had gone yesterday.
Right.
That like Honeywell is the only one that didn't throw 2 innings, but he threw like 50 something pitches in the
Yeah.
1 inning that he threw. Like you had to go Buehler over any of those guys, or Buehler Trinan over any of those guys.
Yeah, exactly. And there was, the cliche, no signs to take him out. Went 2 1/3, no runs, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts, 1 hit allowed. So yeah, I mean, he was doing his job the whole time, and did it through 42 pitches, which is just, I mean, he threw more pitches than Jack Flaherty in the
He also
game.
got more outs than Jack Flaherty.
He got more. He got 3 more outs than Jack Flaherty
He
got.
almost doubled the number of outs Jack Flaherty got.
That's pretty insane. But yeah, he went out, did the dang thing, and yeah, he got the win, which is cool. But yeah, shout out to him. And then yeah, Walker Buehler comes in for the ninth, dominates the
Yeah,
ninth.
I was just say makes it as easy as possible. Like
Yeah,
that inning it was set up for so much dramatics. It was bottom of the ninth, the home team facing elimination, a 1-run game. Bottom of the order, you can flip the lineup with 1 base runner. No, nothing. Weak ground out with a 170 expected batting average, strikeout.
yeah. It was a shutdown performance from Bueller, who yeah further solidified his legacy for this year. Yeah, yeah, and just like that, Dodgers are World Series champions. Yeah, no, pretty wild how that transpired. Just yeah, it's weird, for like an hour we were thinking this was coming back to LA.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Oh, I mean, I would say more than that. But yeah, I mean, this game was dead to rights, as were a few others. In terms of the series as a whole, we have plenty of stats to get into, but I think just like I said, this was a series where above everything else, the Yankees beat themselves. There are 4 defensive plays that essentially decided, maybe even 5 defensive plays that essentially decided entire games in favor of the Dodgers committed by the Yankees. You go back to game 1, there was that Kike Hernandez triple down the right field line where Soto misplayed it and allowed Kike to get to third on what probably should have been a double. Which that's a tough play, and he tried the hard thing. He tried to go at it directly. He should have just played it off the bounce, but that one I can let slide because he at least went for the big play and just missed. But the throw back into the infield on the Shohei Ohtani double that Gleyber Torres couldn't handle, that allowed Ohtani to go to third. He would later score on a sacrifice fly that he wouldn't have scored on if he was standing on second. Like that's a play that brought the game to extra innings and eventually gave the Dodgers the win. And then you point to those 3 plays in the 5th inning. If you take the that throwback into the infield that allowed Otani to go to third, plus any one of the three plays in the fifth inning of Game 5, and you erase those from memory, we're talking about a 3-2 Yankees lead going into LA. Like that's all it takes. That those two plays, the throwback into the infield and any one of the three, you erase two of those and just have them be played normally. This is a 3-2 Yankees lead going into LA. Instead, we're talking about a 4-1 Dodgers win.
Yeah, and I don't think it's it like, obviously we're only looking at the Yankees mistakes, but I don't think the Dodgers really had any of those throughout the
No,
series.
nothing that drastic. Like they had a couple errors, but like that happens, right? Like
Yeah.
it's baseball. You're gonna make errors. Um, Also, like I don't think up until the fifth inning of Game 5, I don't think that stuff was getting enough attention, right? Because when people think of like the Yankees blowing it in Game 1, they immediately go to that pitching decision to go to Cortez instead of Tim Hill. And like maybe that was an incorrect decision, but a throwback into the infield that was mishandled by an infielder caused the game to go to extras.
Yeah, and that's also the thing you talked about last episode was um that gets hidden in the talk about, whatever percentage of people wanted Cole out there for longer and saying
Mm-hmm.
that the bullpen blew it, when in reality, like, that run shouldn't have been allowed anyway.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how you think about the decision.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it's the little things, right? I mean, the Yankees made a bunch of costly mistakes and the Dodgers didn't, and that's really the story of this series. It's a very weird one, like considering it ended in 5 like that. But yeah, I mean, I was thinking like, man, I watched all 5 of these games. The Dodgers did not look that impressive. They just looked better than their opposition. And I thought that I was going to come into today with that being a hot take. No, it really wasn't. I mean, the stat sheet proves it. Like they were similar on batted ball percentiles. The Dodgers struck out marginally less. They did pull more fly balls, but that's only 10% more throughout the
Right.
series.
And
And also,
also,
it helps that the one blowout win that any team had was the one game that the losing team won.
yeah, right. Yeah, and maybe this is recency bias, and I don't know if the conversation is necessary now, but I think, like, with how the Yankees looked, it was a reminder, like, when was the last time a team had an easier run to the World Series? Like, I don't.
People have been talking about that for a couple of weeks now. I mean, even before the run even started, was okay. This is the easiest road to the World Series a team has.
Yeah, so with it makes the result of how this whole series transpired less surprising, but I think it's greater emphasized in how they lost. Like, it just didn't look like they deserved to be in there. And I think, something we talked about among our friends was there were at least 4 NL teams we would take in a series over the Yankees.
I mean, the
Uh,
thing is, like we say, like the Yankees didn't deserve to be there. They were easily the most deserving American League team.
yeah.
Easily the most deserving. Like no one from the World Series should have been 2 NL teams this year. As Chris spills some water on his laptop. Is everything okay there?
Uh, I'm gonna pause.
Yeah, Chris is doing well. Ignore the jump cut that you may or may not have seen if you're watching on YouTube. Everything's fine.
Yeah, it's 2 days later, and I've bought a new laptop. Um, no, just kidding. We're all good. But yeah, no, it was a conversation we had because, yeah, I mean, thinking about how we outlooked those 2 series that the Yankees had, it was never really a doubt that they were going to win those series. And it wasn't necessarily because they were overwhelmingly talented or overwhelmingly good. It's just there wasn't much of a belief in the other teams. And yeah, something you talked about uh, among ourselves was how, yeah, they haven't won a playoff series against a non-AL Central team um, since, well, definitely since 2018.
2012.
Um, but they
If
haven't
we're if
won
we're not
one.
counting wild card games, 2012,
Yeah, since 2012.
Obama's
It's
first term.
Yeah, it's been exclusively,
Mitt
Guardians.
Romney was running for president the last time the Yankees won a series above a wild card game against a non-AL Central team.
Yeah, it's just been Guardians, Royals, Twins. Is that it?
No White Sox, no Tigers.
Yeah.
They did lose to the Tigers in 2012.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's the
Um,
last time. That's probably the last time they lost to an AL Central team, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, pretty wild. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, the Yankees are a good team, but I think it was clear the Dodgers were better, and I think there were, a lot of other National League teams were better, or at least heading into the postseason than the Yankees were.
Mhm.
Um,
They have a very interesting offseason ahead, and it's not just because of Juan Soto's free agency. That's obviously the only, that's the big thing. But I think there is a lot of interesting things that are kind of overshadowed about the Yankees offseason uh that's being overlooked because of the Soto free agency. Garrett Cole might opt out of his contract. He has 4 years and $144 million remaining on his contract. I don't know if he'll get more money than that, but I think he could get more years and more total dollars. I think
yeah,
it's entirely possible. And if that happens, like that's very tough for them. Uh, they'll probably, I mean, they're moving on from Anthony Rizzo. I think that's pretty clear. Um, there's a team option for Luke Weaver for 2.5 million. Yeah, that's easily being picked up. Um, yeah, there's a lot of interesting things with this Yankees offseason, going beyond the Soto free agency.
oh yeah, for sure. Because
Verdugo's off the books. It's several other, right. I mean, Verdugo's off the books. Canley is a free agent. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things to be said here. Gleyber
yeah,
Torres is a free agent. Obviously, Clay Holmes is a free agent. Yeah, like this team might look very different next year.
yeah, and I feel like they're always in on the main starting pitchers of the market, no matter what their
Mm,
rotation looks like.
yeah,
Um,
like I don't really know if Cole's going to opt out. It's hard to say because I could very much see either possibility happening. Right, he's not getting more average annual value. He's not
no,
getting 36 mil a year from any team. Uh, and he's what age season is he going into? He's going into
I'm
age
checking right.
34, I think.
Yeah,
He's going
yeah,
into age 34. 1 year removed from a Cy Young, but also less than a year removed from an injury riddled season where his strikeout totals have gone down and stuff like that. But I mean, there's not a lot of starting pitching out there, and he would instantly become probably like what the second or third best starting pitcher on the market if he hits free agency.
yeah, and a solid
Fourth at the
argument to
absolute
be number
lowest.
one. Um, yeah, solid argument to be number one. And yeah, I think if this was 2 years ago, it would be a smart decision for Cole to opt
Oh,
out because
easily. Even 1 year ago.
yeah, but just thinking about what the market looked like and how and like there was a lot, Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander had a lot of success in their late 30s, and I think
Hmm.
the market was trusting those longer term deals with those older pitchers. And now that trend has kind of slowed down, maybe teams are going to be a little bit more careful. However, starting pitching, as cliche as it is, it's always a commodity for teams. So,
If
um,
they if they
that
lose Soto and Cole, like what even does this team look like?
it's a tough scene. Like
I have
that's
no idea.
they would have to fight
It's
for a playoff
do it. Is
spot.
it a likely scenario? Absolutely not. I'd find it hard to believe Cole goes anywhere else this offseason. Soto is obviously, I mean, I'm sure you saw his quotes in the post game last night, but he's saying all the Scott Boras words. Like the most viral clip was he was asked like, seeing the fans in right field chanting your name and seeing how beloved you were, like uh does that make you want to come back any bit? Like, does that add anything to your decision? And he said, like, well, we'll see if it adds anything to the owner's decision. It's like, okay, like this guy is saying all of the Scott Boras words. It was a Scott Boras press conference played by Juan Soto.
Yeah.
It was what it was after the game.
Yeah.
He said that he's open to negotiations from all 30 teams, which I think is very funny. I would just love to see the Pirates come out there and be like, 2 years, 30 million. What do you say?
It is hilarious. And when I saw that quote, I was like, it was a rough reminder that there's really going to be like three competitive teams in this deal
Yeah,
probably. It's like Mets, Yankees, and I don't know, maybe the Dodgers or Giants or something like that.
dude, if he signs with the Dodgers,
Yeah,
like
it's tough.
it would be funny.
It
They would. I
it
would
would
I
be
would laugh
funny.
at it.
They'd have zero
Um,
excuse not to break the wins record.
it would literally be the Kevin Durant of baseball, right?
Kind of, but if none of the Warriors were homegrown, also
Yeah, right, right. No, literally.
if the Warriors were entirely like acquired in trades and free agency, yeah, no. That would be that would certainly be I mean, arguably Shohei Ohtani was that. And then adding Soda would add another layer. It would be like if LeBron went to the Warriors along with KD.
Yeah.
Um, but but yeah. No, it'll certainly be fun. Yeah, but yeah, the free agency is gonna be like there's gonna be like two or three big signings, and then we're just gonna be kind of waiting around, I think.
Mhm.
Like there's not too much big after like Soto and maybe Burns and
Burns,
Freed.
Freed. I'm very intrigued by the Blake Snell free agency if it happens.
Oh
Which
yeah,
I
there's a
would have to
possibility.
assume it does. He has what? Well, he has a player option for $30 million. Which does he get that AAV? Probably not, but he's definitely getting like I would say if he play. I mean, he knows how to and how not to play the market now. Especially with Boris, right? Like he is one of the guys that stuck with Scott Boris, I believe. If he was he with Boris before, he was
Um,
right.
Montgomery was the guy that left Boris, so I'm
Yeah.
uh
Then, by the way, Montgomery took up his player option today. Yeah, okay. Blake Snell is with Boris. I thought so. Yeah, I mean, you saw the Ken Kendrick comments about Montgomery from a few weeks ago, right?
um oh yeah, right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was the reason that they didn't make the playoffs or
Yeah.
something.
Anyway, Montgomery just took his player option today,
Yeah, there we
which
go.
was an obvious. Like the whole reason he said that was to try to make the situation toxic for him so that he left.
Right.
And I think he saw through that. But yeah, the Blake Snell free agency I'm very fascinated by because I think teams are a lot more bought in now than they were last year.
Um yeah, yeah, possibly like
Like
definitely his
all of the things that we called unsustainable for Blake Snell from his Cy Young year, he did again.
yeah, and also he did, lower his walk rate, increased his strikeout rate, lowered his home run rate. His
Mm-hmm.
FIP was 2.43 this past year.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, I mean that'll certainly be something to look at. And before we get into some of the narratives of what's ha- what's what kind of this championship represents, got to talk about some series stats and trends. Freddie Freeman won that World Series MVP and very deservedly. He hit 300 with a 1364 OPS. I mean, the guy slugged 1,000. His average at bat was a single.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy to think about. Um, he ended up having 4 home runs, 12 RBI, along with a triple, and he only struck out once in the 22 plate appearances he had. He was also 3 for 6 with runners in scoring position throughout the series. So that's partially where the 12 RBI comes from is he was doing it in the situations he needed to. Most obvious with that game one grand slam. Also had 1.06 win probability added. And that was the most win probability added by a player in a World Series since 2014 Madison Bumgarner, and the most win probability added by a position player in a World Series since 2011 David Freese. So yeah, I mean, obviously very impressive series, and also should be noted, Freeman played two less games than those players, or at least
Yeah.
his series was
And
two less games than the series those guys played in.
I feel like this is going to go down as one of the better. World Series MVP runs in what ended up being a non-competitive series. Like you think about the World Series MVP runs you have in like these 4 or 5 game World Series, and it's like there are some standouts, but in terms of like actually making an impact and feeling like they still might lose the series without this player, even though they won convincingly on paper, like Freddie Freeman's that guy. Like, do the Red Sox win the World Series in 2018 without Steve Pearce? Probably. Do the Rangers win in 2023 without Corey Seager? Probably. Do the Dodgers win in 2024 without Freddie Freeman? I don't know if I can say yes to that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, like going back to 2015, do the Royals win without Salvador Perez? I think so. I'm sure
Yeah.
the
Do
22
the in
2012.
2012? Yeah. Do the Giants win without Pablo Sandoval? Yeah, they win that game without Pablo Sandoval. The
Yeah.
game where he had 3 home runs, they still win that game without him.
Yeah, that is a good point you bring up. On the other side, I figured I'd give a shout out to Juan Soto, who did his part. He slashed 313, 522, 563 for a 1084 OPS throughout the series. Also, an 1102 OPS in the postseason this year. I mean,
Yeah.
he was everything the Yankees signed up for and more in the playoffs. I mean, he was absolutely stunning. Got on base a crap ton. He walked 14 times throughout the playoffs, and that was in how many games? 14. Yeah, I think 14 walks in 14 games. So yeah, 469 on base percentage. He was absolutely brilliant. And then yeah, series trends that you put down. The Dodgers struck out at a 18.2% clip. Yankees struck out at 22.1%. The Dodgers hit 184 with a 239 on base percentage and 368 slugging with runners in scoring position. Yankees slash 200, 315, 422. And also the Yankees set an AL record with 76 walks throughout the entire postseason. So shout out to them. And the Dodgers had 74 walks throughout the postseason, and that ranks third all time in the National League. So shout out to patience, as both teams had quite a bit of it. But yeah, what are as we reflect on 2024 and what the Dodgers did, what comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean the first thing that comes to mind for me personally is that it really just sent the message out to the rest of the league, uh, that if you want to win, this is how to do it. What right? I mean, this is a team that spent northwards of $1 billion this offseason on on its talent. Of course, obviously that's in total dollars and not an average annual value, obviously, but it's the reality, right? I mean, do you have to spend $1 billion to win? Absolutely not. But I mean, the reality is this is a game where you need to spend big to win. I know that underdog stories are very fun in baseball and sports and in life, right? Everyone loves a good underdog, but I mean, sometimes I think it's very necessary to remind the people that you got to try to win and for it to actually pay off. Because I think people love running with narratives of small markets and uh, cheaper ownership, and sometimes whenever someone cuts through the cracks, that it's this big success story that everyone needs to follow. Uh, but the reality is, this is the way to do it. Now, do I think that every team needs Dodgers in terms of total dollar value on payroll? No, I don't think every team can. But in terms of getting putting out the best product that you possibly can, given whatever revenue you have, whatever budget you are capable of having, not the one that you give yourself. You need to be able to give yourself that chance. I talked a few shows about how if the A's spend like the Dodgers in terms of percent of revenue that goes into payroll, their payroll would be much much higher. Same with several other teams. Um, so I mean, the reality is, take what you have and build the best thing you can with it. That's what the Dodgers did, and they happen to have the most resources, sure, but they're also committing to it better than just about anybody else.
Yeah, I think for me, what this championship means is it's great vindication for how well run the organization is, whether it be general management, the internal development that they have or ownership, because obviously, they spend at a high level as well, and they also spend efficiently. They spend it on the right guys too, which sometimes gets lost in translation. There's a lot of teams that have high payrolls that aren't doing as well because they just haven't spent their money in the right way. The Dodgers do that very, very well. I mean, look at the biggest contracts they have. It's Otani, it's Betts, Freeman, Yamamoto. All them were major contributors this year. You can't say the same about in not every case are the four highest paid players on the team for the biggest contributors, but that's the case with the Dodgers, and that's part of the reason why they succeed. But like going back to 2013, in terms of regular season success, it's the Dodgers and it's everyone else. And for a while, there was just no reward at the end. And that was from 2013 to 2019. There was no real reward for what they were doing and how well they were running their team. Uh, you know, for a consistent period of time. So it was kind of they were memed on, and they would have a lot of disappointing ends to seasons. In 2020, that didn't happen, but even then, it was obviously 60-game season. It didn't get recognized as much as it would a 162-game season. And then this year, they finally have that one that gets the respect at the national level, the respect that the respect from the general baseball consensus that they were looking for. And yeah, it's good to get that vindication for them because yeah, with how well run their organization has been, it's still not to not to shed darkness upon them, but 2 World Series in this run still doesn't feel like enough. Like it still feels like they should have won a couple more. That's not to bring down the accomplishment of what they did this year, but it's just more emphasis on how much emphasis or how vindicating this World Series is for that organization, because they really do run their organization better than anyone in baseball for them, in most years. And that was shown this year.
Yeah, I mean they've been working on this one for a while, and it finally got done. I mean, like, you can say that like two in all this time is not enough, but you know what? It's a step towards enough. Whatever that number ends up being by the time that this run of dominance for them is over, it's a step towards whatever that number is. Um, Shohei Ohtani, of course, wins a World Series ring, his first in his career. He has now won a Japan baseball championship, a World Baseball Classic championship, and a World Series championship in what I think you could honestly argue is the greatest season of all time in terms of accolades, in terms of accomplishments, and in terms of statistics. You can go up and down the line. First of all, World Series champion, big postseason contributor, maybe not World Series contributor, but postseason in general, absolutely. I mean, that home run that he hit against the Padres in Game 1, I think really set the tone for the Dodgers' entire postseason and really made the difference in that Game 1, which eventually made the difference in the series, eventually allowing them to move on. The NLCS, he had an 1185 OPS. So he might not have had a World Series, performance that anyone will remember for good reason. But I think you can pretty safely say that he played a large role in winning the World Series entirely when you look at the grand scope of the postseason. And then on top of that, he's going to win MVP this year. He's going to be the first DH to win MVP. He's the first DH to lead his league in wins above replacement. He had the first 50-50 season. He's coming off of a major surgery that he played through the entire year. There was a big scandal involving him earlier this year that he was proven to have no part of, but was kind of looped into. It's his first season playing in a major, well, not in a major market, but it's the most attention that he's ever had on him in a season. He's coming off of signing the largest contract in North American professional sports, and the added pressure that comes with that. And you just can't set expectations for Shohei Ohtani, because like you can't set boundaries for what you expect from him, because whatever we expected, like the best possible scenario was for him this year, he beat it. Right? I mean, 50-50 wasn't a thing on anyone's minds before this year. Much like 40-70 wasn't on anyone's minds before Ronald Acuna Jr. did it. But 50-50 on top of World Series, on top of MVP, F4. I think there's a legitimate chance that, given all those factors, Shohei Ohtani might have put up the greatest season we've seen in 150 years of baseball.
Yeah. Especially the off the field context and yeah, everything he was dealing with, whether it be physical or, um, you know, what was going on with his best friend. Yeah, just it was great. And one of my favorite things about this series heading into it was, we were gonna, clear any winning player narrative of at least one great player in the
Yeah.
series, whether it be Ohtani or Judge. Turned out to be Ohtani. And crazy that in 1 year he was able to transform into a winning player. Just absolutely nuts. Yeah,
Imagine telling
wild.
someone after Game 3 that Judge was going to finish the World Series with an 836 OPS.
Yeah, that
Like
would.
he did turn himself around. Judge did save himself from a year of nothing but narratives.
Yeah, true. Very
I'll give him
true.
credit there. Um, Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, this is a huge postseason for them because I think they were, a lot. I mean, they were obviously a large part of the Dodgers' failures in previous postseasons. Very famously, they went a combined like a 1 for 21 or whatever it was against the Diamondbacks last year. Those two are kind of the large reason why the first round exit narrative is always a thing for the Dodgers. They both vindicated themselves. Betts played very well in the NLCS. Freeman wins World Series MVP. Big for them to vindicate themselves as well. Obviously, it's a bit overshadowed by Ohtani, but I mean, they played a major role too.
Oh yeah, for sure. It was definitely good um to see Freeman get the recognition of World Series MVP because I feel like of that big three, between Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman, Freeman would get overlooked the most. In some ways, understandably, but he's involved in that for a reason, and he showed that in this World Series by slugging 1,000. But yeah, no, it's yeah, and it kind of goes back to just the general construction of this team. Like this is, I mean, overloaded with talent. And there was a lot of talent that was injured in this series. I mean, Tyler
Mhm.
Glass now didn't pitch a single postseason inning. Um, and the Dodgers still were, the clear most
This
talented
team, yeah, like
roster.
this team could not make a single move throughout the entire offseason and still get better on opening day, given where they were in the postseason.
Yeah,
In fact,
yeah,
they would if they did nothing and everyone came back healthy that is capable of doing so to this point. This is a better team on opening day than it was in the World Series.
right, right. Yeah, I would agree. Um, yeah, because the only guy they have leaving right now is Teoscar Hernandez, and I'd take Glass now over Teoscar Hernandez,
Mm-hmm.
if my memory serves me correct. But yeah, it's yeah, like it
I
was
mean,
it
it's
was
not just
due.
it's not just Glass now, but it's Ohtani the pitcher.
Yeah,
It's several other people as well.
right.
Right. It's
Yeah, it is funny to talk about Otani, like a
mm-hmm.
whole nother player is coming back, and it really just productivity wise, really there is a whole nother player coming back.
Yes.
Um, but but yeah, no, it's yeah, it's a testament to the Dodgers and how they've run this organization because yeah, we've like I think they get referenced sometimes as a model organization and that's how it should be, but sometimes people kind of poo-poo that because they don't have as many World Series, or they didn't have as many World Series in the previous decade as say like, Red Sox or Astros. But now that they've, achieved this twice now, they really should be referred to as a model organization because, look at them. They've just a surplus of both homegrown talent and, external talent that they've continued to develop and acquire. And it's resulted in this and a 5-game sweep over the Yankees in the World Series. But yeah, what
Smaller, yeah.
I,
Smaller thing, but shout out to Kevin Kiermaier.
oh yeah.
This is how he's going out. He announced that he was going to be retiring at the end of the year, soon after the trade to the Dodgers, and yeah, very nice way for him to go out for himself, a World Series champion. Um, one of the like in terms of like modern defensive statistics, like maybe the best defensive outfielder of all time.
Yeah, right. And that's kind of emphasized by like, this year he was able to play 116 games despite having a 56 OPS plus. That's how good his
Yep.
defense is. Um, so yeah, that's what was keeping him on the field. But yeah, 21.2 defensive WAR. That's really hard to that's really
Hmm.
hard to accumulate.
Yeah,
It's
just to thought he deserves a shout out because he is retiring at the end of this year, and yeah, like will be remembered as. I mean, the fact that he won what, two Gold Gloves? Well, he won three, but two of those, actually no, sorry, three of those, three of the four, he won three Gold Gloves during like one of the greatest times in terms of defense and center field in the American League. I mean, he was competing with Kevin Pillar, he was competing with Jackie Bradley Jr., and he took three Gold Gloves in 4 years,
yeah,
in 5 years, sorry.
and Byron Buxton included in that for
Byron
a little
Buxton too,
bit.
Mike Trout,
Yeah, yeah,
like
exactly.
yeah. Don't let it get overshadowed how good Kevin Kiermaier was at defense. Bull like throughout his career, like not like his peak. Honestly, his peak was kind of his entire career, was it not?
Um, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty consistent. Even had some moments like in the 2020 playoffs too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember he had I think a couple clutch home runs in that series or in those playoffs. Yeah, 790 OPS throughout the 2020 playoffs along with
At
that
that,
defense.
yeah, also helps. Young franchise. So take this what you have, like I mean, one of the better players in Rays baseball history entirely.
Yeah, true. Um, yeah, one of the faces of that franchise, arguably. But yeah, anything more you wanted to get to?
I think that's probably it, right? Is there anyone else that we're missing that deserves some love for getting a ring? Kershaw gets a second one, I guess. It's comes with a bit of a caveat, but he will be getting a ring.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I am very curious to see, like, do we think maybe next year is it for him?
Um, I mean, it is just age-wise and health-wise, it would make sense.
He's 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 32 strikeouts away from 3,000. He's got two rings. You know, like I feel like if assuming he resigned, did he sign? Is he a free agent again? Yeah, he's a free agent again this year. My guess would be and this I have no evidence to back this up. This is straight up just a complete guess, but my guess would be he signs a 1 year deal with the Dodgers and announces 2025 is going to be it for him.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Yeah, as you mentioned, heading into his age 37 season, he could always surprise us. In 2022, he had a 2.57 FIP and 126 in the third innings pitched.
That is true. That was also going to be 3 years ago now.
Yeah, but in 2023, 9.4 strikeouts per nine. Um, if not for the home runs, he would have had a pretty low FIP. Yeah, but
I
yeah,
also just I feel
obviously.
like he doesn't really like after he gets the 3,000 strikeouts. Is he close to He's not really close to any wins milestones. Like I don't really know what else he has to prove. Like he people will like no matter what, like I don't think there's anything he can do from now until the end of time to get rid of the postseason narratives. Like it is what it is. He still has had his big moments in the postseason. He had a In the 2020 World Series, he had a 2.31 ERA and 11 and 2/3 innings pitched.
Right.
Like at this point, that's just always going to be a thing. It is what it is. Like, what else does Clayton Kershaw really have to do after getting to 3,000 strikeouts?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything necessarily to prove, but I think, yeah, these guys, I think these guys do have a bit of fun doing their jobs, and obviously
Mm-hmm.
once you're done, you can't really get back in.
Yeah,
So yeah, I don't know. Um, but yeah, in terms of legacy, I mean, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer no matter what.
yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, he's not
Yeah.
he's not taking away a Hall of Fame case. He was there 10 years ago at this point.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, 3 Cy Youngs at that point.
Yeah, it
Pretty
wasn't
crazy.
wasn't didn't play enough to be eligible on the ballot, but was still there.
Yeah, exactly.
Had still done enough.
Yeah. But the Dodgers won the World Series. They did it.
They did it.
His
Walker Bueller gets
his
his second
second
strikeout,
strikeout, his
his
first
second
save of the
appearance of the series,
series.
first save of the series as the Dodgers celebrate. Yeah.
No World Series
We need
mention.
to just I think we need to remix every World Series final out on record with that call.
Yeah. The the 93 and 01 World Series is not enough. The 95 LDS is not enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Um,
He did it.
he
Bill
did it.
Mazeroski hits his I don't know how many hits he had, how many homers he had that series.
Yeah, no, that might have been his only hit. You could
That
commit.
might have been his only at bat.
Yeah.
Bill Mazeroski gets his eighth hit, his second home run of the series. The Pirates will celebrate. This was not just any game. This was the seventh game of the World Series.
Um, but yeah, I think that does it for us. Um,
That did it.
and we did it. Um, yeah, the sixth postseason in ARR history wraps up. The fifth full, um, from opening day to World
Mhm.
Series season of ARR wraps up. And yeah,
It was yeah, this was a very different season for both of us in terms of production, but despite Chris and I having being real adults for the first time this year, uh we were still able to make the show work even if it was only once a week the entire season. Um Still glad we got to get things done. This show is, very fun for both of us. It allows us to, stay in check. It allows us to keep ourselves updated on very niche things like who has the highest pulled fly ball rate in the last 3 weeks. Um, so it's very cool that despite being real adults and out of Springfield College full time, that we're still able to put this together every week.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And now we get in now, off season offers a lot of fun opportunities
Oh
for the
yes, it
show.
does. You know what time it is.
Well, yeah, you're obviously
It
very
is.
excited about
It
Hall of
is like
Fame.
it's the last out of the World Series is like the bat signal calling for me
Yeah, yeah,
for Hall of Fame. I've already started planning out my. I have spreadsheets that I've started that will feed into my narratives
yeah,
this
yeah,
year. Like I am very excited. It's a year another. I feel like this maybe is something that I say every year, but I really do mean it when I say it's a year that I've been looking forward to for years. Uh, we have a lot of talent coming off the ballot. We have a lot of talent coming onto the ballots. Um, we have a guy that is in his 10th year that missed the vote by 5 last year. So it should be at least 3 Hall of Famers going in this year with potentially a lot of big gains for returners. Um, but we'll get right into that. We'll get more into that in the next couple.
yeah, yeah. I asked for three Hall of Fame simulations. You gave me 48. Yep,
Yeah,
48.
actually
Actually 51.
51.
I
I don't know
lied
why
just
I
now.
lied to you just there. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you'll be putting in the work. And then
Yeah.
yeah, I think we're gonna try to do positional ranks and the top 50 once
Yes.
again.
Yes.
Um yeah, well, I'd like to space out the positional ranks to try to make it so that we can do one a week. So maybe we'll
Yeah, that would be
schedule
great.
some.
That would be really nice if we could do that.
Yeah, that would be good.
And
Um
then the 50s.
and then the ARR top 50, which we definitely nailed this year.
Yeah.
Um
We'll next week we will have some of our personal recaps for the season. We will have our hits and flops for our players to watch. I feel like maybe we could do a little recap of our our proudest positional picks, our proudest 50 picks. We can figure something out there.
Yeah, it'll
Do we
be
want to do we want to do free agency predictions next week, or do we want to save that for like 2 weeks?
I think we could save that because next week will probably just be an award show. 'Cause
Yeah.
we'll have our
Yep.
self-evaluations, and then we'll also talk about Rookie of the Year, Manager of the Year, Cy
Yeah.
Young, and MVP.
Yeah. If you're waiting for the 50-minute Manager of the Year discussion, it's next week.
Yes, that is that. Yeah, we're gonna have to wait on that.
Mhm.
But
That's why we can't do free agency predictions, because it'll be awards specifically Manager of the Year.
yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah, we will consider all 30. We will talk about Grady Sizemore and why, and try to make the case for him.
yeah.
Shout out to Will Venable for getting the White Sox job.
Oh yeah, shout out to him, former Red Sox bench coach.
Former Red Sox bench coach. Yeah,
Early
for,
2010s.
of the Bruce Bochy coaching tree, I believe he was the Rangers bench coach too.
Yeah, I think so. And just like early 2010s Padres guy that just brings me
Yeah,
back
a
to
good. I haven't heard that name in years. That we will be hearing for at least the next couple of years, because I don't know. I feel like the White Sox job is one that you got to be patient with right now in terms of managers.
yeah, just a guy who when you hear his name, it brings you back to a July morning. It's sun's
Yeah,
peeking
while
through
you're
the
getting ready for
window,
8th grade.
and you're watching Quick Pitch for it's the third rerun, but you're still
Yeah,
watching.
yeah. It's like the 47-minute mark in the hour because the Padres were playing another team that no one really cares about.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, Will Venable hit a 6th inning double to bring the Padres only down 10-3 now.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, oh, they won, they improved their record to 43 and 48. It's very good for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, all right. So yeah, that does it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. We hope you enjoyed this one. If you are listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify and want to watch the conversation as it happens, go to the YouTube channel. It is called Above Replacement Radio. Check out all the features on it, especially the guest playlists where we've had Mark Simon on 4 times. We've also had Jeff Passan, Chris Rose, Foolish Bailey, Sarah Langs, and Mike Petriello. Also follow us on social media. Follow me on Twitter at Chris_Gianta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Curran, and follow the show Instagram at Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. And yeah, that shall do it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next time, where we will be talking awards and our hits and flops of the season.
This conversation is over.